Okay.
Okay, with Hashem's help, we're beginning Masechta Chagigah Daf Beis. I'm going to make it larger in a second. Hopefully, you can see everything on your screen. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just. I'll stop the video. Okay. So before we go that, we just go back to a picture so we get clearly understand. The Gemara said, the Mishnah said that you're not allowed to, when you go to the mikvah and you're toveling cups, so don't put one keli inside the other keli. Assuming, let's say, you're toveling a cup, the inner cup, the outer cup. Let's assume it's tahar. That's what we're going to learn. The inner cup is tame, and you want to tovel it within that keli. So the Mishnah says it doesn't work for kodesh, but it works for truma. If you're going to use it for kodesh food, it wouldn't work. The inside keli remains tame. For truma food, it remains tahar. So the question is why? So the Gemara gave two possibilities. One was called Rav Ila's possibility. He said that the reason is because the inner cup is heavier, weighs down when you put it into the mikvah, and therefore when it's inside another keli, not all the water will get all around the inner keli. Like you mentioned with the thermos. So it doesn't get all around. So therefore, there's a possibility that the inner keli had a chatzitza, and therefore it didn't get tahar in the mikvah. So we're only concerned about that by kodesh, not by truma. And we're going to understand why not. Well, if it's such a problem, it should be also by truma. The next possibility was Rava, and here's where the picture comes in. Rava said the reason why you can't do it is because we are afraid if you allowed people to put kalim inside other kalim, he might put a let's say a gold pin, right? You want to tovel a gold pin inside a soda bottle, like you see in the picture over here. Well, the problem with that is it doesn't work if you put that in the mikvah because there's no shesheferes hanoi. The spout is too small. So for the mikvah water to connect with the water that's inside the bottle, so it's almost as if you didn't put the pins into the mikvah. So that's why. So we don't allow you to tovel even in a pickle juice in a pickle bottle, because we might come to do in a soda bottle. That's the gzeira. So that only applied by kodesh, but not by truma. So what the Gemara is going to now ask, what is the difference? Give me a nafkamina, a practical nafkamina between Rav Ila's reason and Rava's reason. So the Gemara is going to say, what happens if you have a type of keli, let's say like a laundry basket? They don't make small laundry baskets. You see, by jars, they make large jars with large openings, and they make soda bottles with small openings. So you can make a gezerah. But if it's a type of keli that
Lewis is
only
trying to get in.
what?
Lewis is waiting to be let in.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I got it. Okay. So the question is, so the Gemara says that the nafkamina is going to be between Rava's reason and Rav Ila's reason is a case of a laundry basket. So let's go into the Gemara again. Okay, we're going to Hi Lewis. We're just beginning. We are Daf Chav Beis Amud Aleph, about let's see, that's 6 lines from the top. The Gemara says, "My ika bein Rava the Rav Ila." What's going to be the difference between Rava's reason and Rav Ila's reason? Rava's reason again is the reason why you can't be tovel keli inside a keli because you might tovel something into a keli that has a small spout like the soda bottle, and therefore it won't work. It won't be matire. And Rav Ila's reason is because the inner keli weighs down on the outer keli, and it's a chatzitza. So the ika benayu, there'll be a difference. Sal vegargusni, these are type of huge baskets. Huge baskets like a laundry basket. Shemilon kalim vidbilam. You filled it up with kalim. Imagine a laundry basket that you filled up with a bunch of glasses, and you put it in the mikvah. So Laman Diyama Mishim Chatzitza, according to the opinion why you don't do these things is because there's a chatzitza. Maybe those glasses are going to weigh down very heavy onto the laundry basket as you put it into the mikvah, and all the water of the mikvah will not cover the whole glasses. Ika, you still have a problem, even if you use a laundry basket. Laman Diyama, but according to the opinion, the reason why you don't do this is Mishim Gzeira, Shemel Yatbil Machtin Vitzinoris Bekli She'en Bepiv Shefveres Anoid. Maybe you're going to dip into the mikvah. If you're allowed to do kalim, besides kalim, people are going to extend it to put needles into gold pins into soda bottles, and toivel it that way. And you know that doesn't work. So therefore, they asked you to toivel into mikvah, kalim inside a kalim, all types of kalim, and any type of jar or anything like that. You can't put another kali inside that. But sal the gagusni she'ain befiin k'sheshveres anoid. But these baskets that are so large, they never make them small. They always have a large opening. Leka, there's no problem with that. So according to Rava, that would be permitted even by Kodesh. But the Rava letame, Rava goes according to his opinion. The Amar Rava said, sal the gagusne, you have a big basket, a big laundry basket, shemilan kalim v'hitbilam. You filled it up with a bunch of glasses for Kodesh, right? Kodesh glasses. You want to use it in your hotel that's serving Kodesh, and you put it in the mikveh, tahirin, it works. So you see that Rava gave you the leniency that even by Kodesh, if it's a big basket, it's permitted to be toivel keli inside a keli. Now the Gemara just says, just a case, what happens? You have a mikvah that has 40 saw, okay? But in the middle of the mikvah, dividing, like you made a dividing walls with a bunch of these baskets. Now these baskets have, don't have little, they only have tiny holes in them. They don't have a hole like a kasheferes anoid. The kasheferes anoid, as we said yesterday, is a hole that you could stick 2 fingers in and you could turn your fingers around. If you go to a mikveh, you can see that. If you go but look on the wall closely, you'll see that there's always a hole in the wall of the mikveh. So what happens? Mikveh, shechilku besal begagusni. You divided the mikveh into 2 parts, right down the center, with these baskets. So now each side of the mikvah has only 20 saw. So toivel sham, you guessed it, loy also loy tvila. The tvila doesn't work because now it's 2 parts and it's not connected by a hole of sheferes anoid. Even though the water can pass through, but there's no big enough hole because these are baskets that only have tiny holes. And the Ha'ara, he proves it. Imagine a little pond that formed somewhere, and you have a little puddle of water. So that water ultimately is connected to water underneath the earth, because if you dig deep enough, there's water there, and yet it's not kosher mikvah, because even though the earth is porous, but there's no one hole of sheferes anoid connecting the water from that's in this pond or puddle to the water underneath. And we need 1 saw in 1 place. So that therefore it's not kosher. Okay. Now the Gemara says, again, imagine the soda bottle with the gold pin right inside of it, and you want to toivel it. We said it doesn't work. So now we're just adding a caveat over here. Mahani Mili, when did we say with the soda bottle with the pins inside of it, is that it doesn't work? Bikli tahar. If the soda bottle is tar, and all you want to be metaher is the pins inside. Well, when you put it into the mikvah, there's no opening in the soda bottle with 2 fingers in there. So then the tefillah doesn't work for the pins. What happens? Ava b'chli tameh. But what happens if the soda bottle is tameh, and so you're being toivel not only the soda bottle but the pins inside, so both. So migay the solko tvila lekula gufa demani. Since the tvila works at least for the soda bottle, solko lunami the kalim the ispe. It would work also for the kalim that's inside of it. That means it would be, we have like a migay. Since the only way to be toivel a soda bottle is actually dip it into the mikvah. So if the mikvah is going to be mitar the soda bottle, so if I have pins inside of it, that would also become tar, even though the opening of the soda bottle is not kisheferes anoid. And this is almost stated in the Mishnah. That now we learned in the Mishnah, kalim shemilam kalim. You put a kalim that you filled it up with kalim, right? So kalim that like a big kali, and you put small kalim inside of it. V'hit bilam, and you put it all into the mikvah. Hare elu tahirim. All the kalim inside become tar, not like our Mishnah. But Rashi says this only works for truma, not for kodesh. The imlay taval, but if you did not toivel the outside kalim, Mayim Amuravim Ache Beravim Kishaveres Noid. Then you have to make sure that the outer keli has a opening of Kishaveres Hanoid. So the Gemara explains what this Mishnah means to say. My Ka'amar, what is the Mishnah trying to say? The im loy tavel, if you didn't tavel the outer keli. What do you mean? You're putting the whole thing into the mikvah. So Hachi Kama, this is what the Mishnah says. If you don't have to tavel the outer keli, in other words, that keli is tahar, and the whole purpose of putting it into the mikvah is for the inner keli, make sure mayim hamuravim ache muravim b'kishveres onoid. In order to mix the water, you have to make sure the opening of the outer keli is like a kishveres onoid. But if it's a soda bottle and the soda bottle is tar, then you won't be metaher the kalim, the pins that are inside of it. But like the beginning of the Mishnah says, but if the outer keli is tame and you just put 10 pins inside of it, so then even when you put it in the mikveh, it is tar. Again, with that concept of migoy, that it works for the outer keli, it works for the inner keli as well. Next Gemara. Actually, Rava and Rav Ila is actually a machloikis tanoim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Sal the gagusni shemilan kalim bilam. Again, let's say this laundry basket, and I'm saying it's a laundry basket. They call it a basket that collects olives from a press, but it's a large basket. You filled it up with kalim, and you dipped it into the mikvah. Bain lekoidish, bain truma tahirin. It works. Saifa koidish, saifa trumas tahirin. Presumably, like Rava would say, because so Rava will agree with this Tanakama, because this salva gagusi never comes in a small spout size, so it always works when you could be toivel this a kalim inside of that. But Abba Shaul says no, but we're still worried about chatzitza. La truma, it could only work for truma. Avaloi la kodesh, it doesn't work for kodesh. So Abba Shaul holds the reason why you don't toivel kalim inside kalim because he's still concerned about chatzitza. Maybe the inner keli weighs down on the outer keli, and therefore not all the water will cover the inner keli, and therefore it would remain. This could only work for truma, not by kodesh. Here comes the $1 million question, and here we're up to hachi by the yellow. The Gemara's question is, okay, let's say you want to assume. Let's take one reason. The assumption is that the reason why you don't toivel a keli inside a keli is because you're concerned that the inner keli will be so connected and weighed down onto the floor, onto the bottom of the outer keli, and therefore the mikvah water will not cover it. So you say that is only a concern by kodesh, not by truma. So the question is, why not? If this is a legitimate concern, we shouldn't say that. We should say that it works. It should not work by truma also. That's the Gemara's question. Ihachi, if what you're saying is true, truma nami, by truma also, we should not allow you to be toivel keli inside a keli. So the Gemara answers, very simple. The man ka'amrinim, who's going to be concerned about toivel keli inside a keli? Chaverim, real frum people who are concerned about being metaher, of tahara. Chaverim made the yadi. When chaverim toivel for truma, what do they know? They know not to make sure that the inner keli is not so way down onto the outer keli. They'll just make sure it floats up a little bit, so that all the water covers the inner keli. So the Gemara asks if you're dealing with chaverim, so then ihachi kodesh nami. Who's concerned about this whole thing is people who are concerned about tahar, from people. So kodesh nami, when they dip things into kodesh, when they dip the kodesh, something that's going to be used, a vessel for kodesh, they should also not be concerned about keli b'sach keli, because they'll make sure that it doesn't weigh it down, it doesn't cause a chatzitza. So the Gemara answers a very interesting carrot, that when these from people toivel, they do it okay, but right next to them chazalei am haaretz, that ayin hay stands for am haaretz, and am haaretz will look at them, and he's going to do the same thing, v'ozel matbel, and he'll be toivel, and he's not going to know to make sure that the inner keli is loose. He's going to do it. He's going to always be toivel keli inside a keli without being careful. So therefore, by kodesh, we don't allow the chaver to do it, the from guy to do it, because maybe the amaretz is going to learn from him to do the same thing, and he's not going to do it right. So the Gemara says then that you have the same problem by truma. Truma name chazale amaretz v'azo matbe. When it comes to truma, truma type of kalim, when the amaretz sees a chaver toivel kalim for truma, he's a keli inside a keli. He's going to follow it and do the same thing, and yet you permit it to be done by truma. So the answer is, what's the worst that could happen? The Amoritz is going to toivel a keli inside a keli for truma, and really it's not going to remain tahar, and he's going to put truma food in there, but really he didn't do a good tefillah. So we have a rule that a chaver never accepts truma food from an Amoritz. So even if Amoritz will take truma food, put it into this keli, a kohen chaver will never accept it. Loi mikablina minahu. That's what the Gemara says. We never accept truma food from an Amoritz because we always assume that he doesn't know how to keep truma tahara, and it's like lahavdil taking kosher food from somebody who's reformed. He can tell you it's kosher, but we don't accept it. So the Gemara asks, if so, then kodesh nami noy mekabel minahu. Let's not accept any kodesh food from an Amoritz. In other words, if an Amoritz goes to the Beis Hamikdash and wants to donate, let's say, oil or flour for the Beis Hamikdash, we shouldn't be able to accept it from him because and therefore allow the chaver to be toivel keli b'soich keli, and even if the Amoritz will learn from them, we're never accepting food from them anyway. So the Gemara says, no, that's not a choice anymore. When an Amoritz comes to the Beis Hamikdash and donates, let's say, oil and flour, we must accept him, even though he's not so from. If we don't accept him, hava le'eva, this will cause animosity. Oh, you have a Beis Hamikdash, you're not accepting my donation, so we don't want animosity. So the Gemara says, truma nami hava le'eva. When a kohen, when an Amoritz comes to a kohen and says, here's my truma, if the kohen doesn't accept it, that leads to animosity. So how is it that we don't accept truma? So the Gemara says, loy ich beslei. The Amoritz has no problem if you don't accept his truma. Why? Because if one kohen who's a chaver doesn't want to accept his truma, he'll go to the azal yavle lekohen Amoritz chavrei. He'll find another Amoritz kohen that will accept it from him. So this Amoritz kohen will accept it from him. So he has no problem with Ava. But guess what? When you come to the Beis Hamikdash, there's only one Beis Hamikdash, and therefore we have no choice. If the Amoritz comes with a donation, so with the Amoritz comes with a donation, since there's no other Beis Hamikdash, we must accept it from them. Therefore, there's a chumrah by kodesh. We don't toivel keli b'sech keli, because we trust that the chaver is going to do it right, but the Amoritz is going to watch the chaver do such a thing. He'll do it himself, and then his kalim will become tamei if he's going to be tar something for kodesh. So therefore, we don't do that. We don't toivel keli b'sech keli for kodesh. And now the Gemara says, man tana dechayish le'eva. Who's the tana that's always concerned about that Amaratzim should not have animosity towards from people? How do you know? Rabbi Yossi, this is Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yossi said, why is every person, no matter what frumkeit you have, you can bring oil and wine to the Beis Hamikdash and tell everybody it's tahar, and we believe you. We don't mistrust anybody. Why do we do that? Because if we did, and if we made the Beis Hamikdash reserved only for super from people, guess what's going to happen? Every person, if you're not going to accept them, this Beis Hamikdash was not good enough for me. I'm going to build my own, and he'll make our own paradum, and that's terrible. Amar Papa. So we are concerned about Ava. Amar Papa says, in our court systems also, even though Amaratzim, they're not so from, we might not trust them as witnesses. But Kaman, Mekablinin Hoidana Sadusam Amaretz. Nowadays, why do we accept testimony from Amaretz? And we don't say, no, we can't accept you because we don't trust you, and because we're concerned about Ava, animosity. Come on, Rabbi Yossi. This is the Rabbi Yossi that we just discussed, that he said that when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash stuff, we always accept the donations of a Amaretz. So now, fine. Now comes the Gemara into a question and says like this. So let's examine this for truma. For truma, we allow you a kohen, we allow the frum person to toivel a keli inside a keli if the vessels are going to only be used for truma. The Amoritz may learn from him, and he may not do it correctly. I don't care if the Amoritz learns from him, because we never, if the Amoritz gives food to the kohen, we'll never accept it anyway. Okay, so that's true. But the Gemara's question is, v'neches l'she'ela. The Gemara's question is, but maybe a chaver is going to borrow a vessel that the Amoritz said it's tahor from truma, and he's going to borrow a vessel from the Amoritz. And if the Amoritz is misinformed about how to toivel kalim for truma, this vessel is going to end up, this tummy vessel potentially can end up in a chaver's possession, because a chaver who can't afford all kalim, not like today, who borrows dishes from each other, he can't afford, will one day borrow something, a pot, let's say, from the Amoritz, and it turns out it's going to be tummy. Now, how do you know that? Now, the Gemara like segues to prove from a Mishnah that it was common practice for chaverim to borrow kalim from Amaratzim. The Tnan we linked in the Mishnah. Klicheres matzel al hakoil. Divrei Beis Hillel. The case is like this. So let's just give you a picture. Maybe I have a picture over here. The case is like this. You see this picture over here. There is a dead person, a dead piece of mace in the house on the bottom floor. The tumah goes all around the house, but potentially it could go up to the second floor. So if you covered the second floor with a hole into the second floor, there's a hole there. Potentially the tumah could go up. If you cover the hole with a klicheres, an earthenware keli is not makabel tumah on the outside. So, and if it's a tar earthenware keli, it can actually act as a plug. So according to Beis Hillel, no matter what you have on the upstairs attic will not remain tameh. It will actually remain tahar because you have a good plug there. So let's read that inside. Kli cheres, the now we learned in the Mishnah, kli cheres, if you put a kli cheres to block the hole to go into the second floor, matzalet kol, it saves everything. Divrei Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says a funny thing. It only saves that it doesn't become tameh, only food, drink, and other klicheres, other earthenware keli. But let's say you have a metal pot, that would become tameh. So that's a fascinating split the atom here. When it comes to food and drink and klicheres, you say it's tahar. Beis Shammai agrees that it's tahar, but if there was a metal pot there, Beis Shammai would say it's tameh. You don't make sense. Why are you saying that? Beis Shammai explained the reason. Because really, every earthenware kalim that an Amoritz has is tameh, and a tameh keli will not act as a chatzitza, cannot block, even if you use it as a plug. If the Amoritz has an earthenware keli that got tameh, and an earthenware keli gets tameh, if the tumah ends up in the inside of the keli, the ain kli tameh chaytzit, and therefore kli tameh cannot act as a barrier. If you put a tameh tameh as the barrier to plug up the hole, it would not work. So okay, so you're telling me that the kalim of Amoritz that he put there to act as a barrier wouldn't work. Amr Lam Beis Hillel, so Beis Hillel said, okay, but you said that the food and drink that's in the attic is tar. Why? There's a tameh keli acting as a barrier, and therefore as not acting as a barrier. It's almost as if you have nothing blocking it, and therefore it should be tameh. Amar lehem Beis Shammai, so Beis Shammai responded, when we said it's tahar, who's going to eat that food? We go to Chaf Beis and the Beis. The Amoritz doesn't care so much about eating tameh food. But a metal keli, and here's the point. Should I be mitahir his metal kalim? Let's say he has a pot in the second floor. The food and drink he's going to eat himself. But the metal kalim, may end up in a frum person in the chaver's hands, because the amaretz is going to lend it to the chaver. And if you're going to tell me that that's tahar also, he's going to lend it to the chaver, and it turned out it was tameh. Therefore, we told him half and half. We told him that your food and drink and earthenware kalim, you can keep, it's tahar, no problem. And he's not going to feel bad. We tell him that, because he's going to say, "Oh, right, it's tahar. You're not." But you should be more machmir to be toivel that uh, uh, that that metal kalim, and actually take it out of tumei mace, and he'll listen to us and that. Now the Gemara tells a story. We're still all part of the kasha, but you see right away from the top of the page that amaratzim, you can see from the Mishnayos that it was common practice for amaratzim to lend their kalim to Talmidei Chachamim, to chaverim. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Amar Rabbi Yeshua said, "Boishnim b'devreichem b'shami." I'm so embarrassed by what you said, because it makes no sense. You're telling me the food and drink is tahar, but the kalim are the metal kalim are tameh. Efshar, you'll have a possibility like this in the attic. You'll have isha lasha bareva, a woman kneading dough in a kneading bowl. Isha bareva tameim. The woman and the reva become tameh shiva because of the mace downstairs. Ubatzak tar, and the dough will remain tar. Or lugin mashkin, moli mashkin. You'll have a flask full of liquid. So again, the same situation. If it's in the attic and with the hole being blocked by a kalim of an amaretz, it doesn't work. Lugin tamim chumashiva. You can say the flask is, you have to put it in the mikvah, and it has to be a 7-day process with paraduma waters. Umashkin tahirim, the mashka will remain tahir. So he didn't understand Beis Shammai, and he said, "I'm embarrassed of you, Beis Shammai." Look at this, what the Gemara says, fascinating. One Talmud from the students of Beis Shammai explained their rabbi's reasoning. Amalai, he said like this, let me tell you the reason of Beis Shammai. Amalai, Rabbi Yeshua said, Emor, tell me. Amalai, he said, Kli tamei chaitzis or eine chaitzis. If you put a keli tamei in that hole between the first floor and the second floor, would it act as a barrier or not? Amalei eine chaitzis. It doesn't work because it's a kli tamei. So I'm going to ask you a question. Kli shel amaretz tamei atar is a normal kelim of amaretz is a tamei atar. Amalei it's tamei, because with the Rabbanim we say all the kelim of amaratzim tamei. Now, the imata amalei tamei. If you're going to say that if you tell the amaretz everything you have is tamei, so you can tell him that everything on the second floor is tamei. Klum mashkiach alecha. Would he listen to you? He'll be so angry that you tell him that everything on the second floor is tamei. If you tell him it's tamei, he'll never listen to us. Shali tahar v'shalcha tamei. He'll say mine is tahar, yours is tamei. You see, you have to deal with amaratzim with kid gloves. So you have to have a leniency or a psychological way to deal with them. So we tell them, look, yours is tahar, your food is tahar, but just be machmir and toivel the metal pots that you have up there. And because we're concerned that it may end up in a chaver's hand. That is the reason of Beis Shammai. Miyad holach Rabbi Yeshua b'nishtateach al kivrei Beis Shammai. Rabbi Yeshua was so upset that he said something derogatory against the students of Beis Shammai. So he went to the kvarim of Beis Shammai, of the students of Beis Shammai. There must have been a bunch of kvarim who were known students of Beis Shammai, and he put himself and flattened himself on the kaver as if to ask mechila. It's a strange way to do it, but the people who want to ask mechila from somebody will lie down on the kaver. He said, "Na nesi lechem atzmis b'shamei." I'm asking forgiveness from you, you bones of Beis Shammai. Umas tumash lechem kach. Things that I don't understand have a good reason. Many things that you said that have a real clear reason. Certainly, they're very high and they make perfect sense. I'm so sorry I spoke derogatory against something I didn't understand that you had a good reason for. Amru, the Chachamim said, the end of the story about Rabbi Yeshua, Kol Yamav, all his days, Hishcharu Shchina Mepnei Tani Yosef. His teeth were blackened because he fasted. He was so distraught about how he spoke disparagingly against Beis Shammai. He fasted for the rest of his life, and his teeth turned black. Katonomius. So, but we have a partial quote, l'chavaloi. In other words, that there was common practice that chaverim would borrow pots from Amaretz. Alma Shalinamane. So say we do borrow. And if we do borrow pots from them, so why would we allow a leniency to Toivel Keli B'Sach Keli for Truma? Maybe the Amaretz will watch a chaver do that and do the same thing and really not be careful to do it properly. And his Kalim will remain Tameh, and he's going to eventually lend his Keli out to a chaver. Answers the Gemara, even if he did do that, when a chaver borrows a keli from Amaretz, he right away tovels it in the mikvah. So it's not going to be a problem if he borrows a keli from Amaretz. So the Gemara says, if that was the case, Beis Hillel should answer Beis Shammai, that what's the problem? That they may lend the metal pot to the metal pot that was in the attic to the chaver. When he's going to borrow it, he's also going to be toivel it. Oh, but that's not true. He's not going to be toivel because tamei mace boya hazal gimel v'zayin. Because really, it could come out that this was a tamei mace. This metal pot will need 3 and the sprinkling of the waters, of the paraduma waters, on the 3rd and the 7th day, and therefore he has to borrow the pot for 7 days. Even though they borrow stuff from Amaretz, but for 7 days they're not borrowing a keli from the Amaretz. And therefore, we want the Amaretz to take care of all potential problems. He takes care of being toivelet. He takes care of getting sprinkled 3 and 7. So he'll do that if we tell him that only the pot is tameh, but your food is tar. So he'll listen to us, even though he doesn't fully understand the reason, but it's not, he doesn't get insulted by us by telling him so. And therefore he'll be more inclined to listen to the Chachamim. So the Gemara is dealing now with Amaretz. Va'atvila loy mehemne. Would you say, so we'll finish over here. Va'atvila loy mehemne. You don't trust Amaretz that he made tvila, why do you say that Amaretz's kalim are tameh? He says, I put it in the mikveh, it's kosher. Well, Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Neman and Amaretz are taharas tvilas meis. If they say that they're tahar from touching a dead body, they're believed. So how do you resolve that? Amar Abaye like kasha. Ha begufay. If he tells you that my personal body is tahar, we believe him. Ha bekalev. When he tells you his kalim are tahar, that we don't believe him because it's a big pain in the neck to start making sure all your kalim are tahar. So we don't trust him. Rava says either even kalim. They both could be talking about kalim. Sometimes we trust him about his kalim, his dishes, and sometimes we don't. Like kasha. If he tells us, I never toiveled one keli inside another keli. So I always put the whole keli into the mikveh, and I never had a problem with that. So we trust him. But if he tells you I did do that, if he tells you I toiveled a keli inside a keli, but I never did it, I made sure that the opening of the outer keli was big like a sheveres anoi, like the 2 fingers, then we don't trust him. Because now he's opening himself up to being toivel in a very fancy way, keli b'sach keli, and we have to trust him that not only did this fancy way of toiveling, but he also did it correctly. That he spoke too much, we don't trust him. Vatanya, we learned in a brayso like the same thing over here. Neman Amaretz loima, and Amaretz is believed to say, Peris loy chuchshru. My fruits never became susceptible to tumah. No water fell on it, and this apple never has a problem. We know that an apple to be kabel tumah has to have water fall on it in order to become susceptible to tumah. If he says my fruits are not susceptible, I never had water fall on them, we trust him. He's not believed to say peris chuchshru. My pears are susceptible for tumah, but I made sure they did not become tameh. They didn't become tameh. Once he opened the can of worms and saying his pears are susceptible to tumah, we don't believe him to say that it didn't become tameh. Now the Gemara just finishes off 1 or 2 things. Is he believed to tell you that I'm tameh, I'm tahar? If a Amaretz comes to you and says, I'm tahar from tameh mace, do we believe him? Well, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, chaver sheba lahazois, a chaver that comes to the base, let's say to the shul, and they're supposed to sprinkle on him the paraduma waters. Now, the only time you can sprinkle paraduma waters if it's the 3rd day from the time that he touched the dead body, and then on the 7th day you do it, and then he goes to the mikvah. So if he says it's the 3rd day, Mazanol miyad, we trust him. Third day, prove it. You're right. We trust him. Ma'aretz shabalazis. Ma'aretz comes to the sprinkling guy and says, "Sprinkle on me. It's my third day. Ain mazanol. We tell him to come back in 3 days, because we don't trust him that 3 days passed. So from the time that he touched the dead body, perhaps only 1 day, and then the paraduma is not going to work. Till he does the third day and the seventh day. So we see when it comes to body issues, we don't trust in Amoritz, and in fact, we make sure that he waited the wait of the 3 days and the seventh day. We have to make sure that we don't trust him to tell us that it's his third day. So how do you resolve that? You tell me you always trust him when it comes to body concerns, tuma of body. So skip the Ella. Omar Abai explained, it's very simple. To go to the mikveh, we trust him. Since we're doing a strictness when it comes to sprinkling of the paraduma waters on him, well, machmer, we don't believe him. So therefore, we go lenient on him when he says he actually went to the mikveh. Since we have a strictness that we don't believe him when he says that it's my third day, sprinkle me the waters. So now we know we don't believe him. So he's more careful to say the truth. So if he says that he actually went to the mikveh after the sprinkling of the seventh day, we do believe him. One more piece of the Gemara. Acharayim v'toich. The Mishnah said that acharayim v'toich. That means that sometimes a keli can become halfway tumah. How could a keli become halfway tumah? So it becomes halfway tumah if, let's say, a keli is getting the tumah d'Rabbanan through mashke. Sometimes the Chachamim said that all waters that become tamei, even if it's a sheni, it could be metama a keli. That's very interesting. Because why did they say that? Because there's some waters that have the power to be mekabel a keli midaraisa. For example, the spit of a nida, right? It's a nida is an avatama. The spit could also be metama a keli. It has a din like an avatama. So we said any time a water is tame, even if it's a sheni, it could be metama a keli. But we don't want to burn truma on that. So we say that only half the keli becomes truma, the inside or the handle becomes tame, or the back of it. That we say, so differentiate. So when a truma will touch such a keli, we'll know that truma is only tumah d'Rabbanan, and you're not going to burn the truma, you're going to let it just rot, because we're not allowed to burn truma that became only tameh d'Rabbanan. So the Gemara says, so that's what it says. You can have a half a keli become tameh only by truma when it comes to truma, but by kodesh it doesn't work. We have something similar, like you could have your hands become tameh and your body is tahar. The things that Rabbanan can splice an atom. So the Gemara says, "My acharayim v'toich." What is the meaning of this acharayim back and inside? Kitatan, we learned in the Mishnah, kli shenit ba'achayim, a keli that became tameh on the back of it, b'mashkin, with a water, a liquid that's tameh midrabanan, that acharayim mitam. Only the back of that keli is tameh. Toiche, the inside. Oignoi is the rim. Let's say there's a rim. Imagine a rim where you could actually have put your fingers under the rim. Oznoi is the ear, the handle. Oznoi is the ear with a yadav, and it's a long handle like you have on a frying pan. All that tahor remain tar, because only the part that touched the mashkin that becomes tameh. So we wanted to make sure that everybody knows it's tameh d'Rabbanan. But if the inside became tameh, kulei tameh, the whole thing becomes tameh. And you'll know that since taiche is always the way to be metame keli anyway, so we say the whole thing becomes tameh, but you'll somehow recognize that it's tameh, that it's only tameh d'Rabbanan. One more thing, ubeisa tzvita. The Mishnah says the beisa tzvita of a keli is tameh. Or is another part of the keli. My basis vita. It's the place where you pass the keli back and forth. It's a part where where the nikia das put their like ketchup in, the condiments in. I'll just show you the picture and then we'll end. The picture for that is this. You see this? This picture over here, they used to have bowls where you could put let's say the ketchup or the mustard in that little piece. So when we break up a keli to say only part of it becomes tameh, we can say that the back or the space satzvita is that piece. Only if the mashkin, the liquid touched only that piece becomes tummy. The rest of the keli is tahar, and that's basically what the Gemara is saying. Okay, and that's it. So let's leave it over here by Tani Rabbeva by Kamed Rav Nachman. Okay, we'll stop right over here.
Oh,
Okay.
well, enjoy the wedding. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you. Good night.
Yes, just get the Nacht. Schwere Gemam. Okay, very good. I get Shabbos.
Thank you. Have a good
Get
Shabbos.
Chodesh, I get Shabbos.
Agit Chodesh, Agit Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.